her report, but the number of people. If you can provide that, that'd be great. Commissioner Watson, you have some thoughts?
Thank you, Chair Burton. Just to address an earlier question, why pick on unions? Don't feel I'm picking on them. I'm focused solely on chipping away at the racial wealth gap, and union construction is responsible for nearly half of the city's contract spending. This is in a city where the average net worth for Blacks is $8 and $247 for white families. Zero construction unions in Boston have a person of color in the senior leadership positions, and on over 120 salaried positions. In 2020, only one was to a Black individual. I'm going to take a step back here, and I'm actually going to re-quote from the GBH article that Singer wrote. It says, Boston construction still has very few Black workers who's to blame. This is from Kathleen McNeil, who I believe is here today. She's a principal at Millennium Partners Boston. Told GBH News that the developer wanted the building to be a model of workforce inclusion. Quote, we really felt it's time for our jobs to reflect the city of Boston, she said, end quote. Article goes on to say, but the goals haven't been met, and Millennium Partners in Suffolk point to the unions. Quote, we get assigned a workforce out of the union hall, said Nick Dimitri, please forgive me if I mispronounce your name, is Senior Vice President at Suffolk Construction. The limiting factor on our ability to deliver diversity is tied directly to how diverse or not the union hall is, end quote, and from the article. Seems to me that ownership wants this project at a minimum to meet the goals of the BRJP. That's been come across very clear from my correspondence with Ms. McNeil and everything that I've seen from her leadership. It also seems like the general contractor, primarily via the efforts led by Corey Allen, is trying, again, at a minimum, to at least meet the goals of the BRJP. So one of two things is then taking place. It's either the unions don't have the workforce to meet their BRJP goals, especially for Black workers, or two, they have the workers but refuse to place them on jobs. There isn't a logical third option here. Either way, unless you're a white man, Boston Union construction simply isn't getting the job done. And that's by choice. That's by choice. The greater Boston unions could diversify all leadership ranks if they wanted to. But, and this is an important point, never in the history of the United States has a group of white men as large and powerful as they are ever willingly conceded anything measurable to people other than white men unless forced. Lastly, I need to address an article that was attached to the packet. It was a Dorchester Reporter article entitled Mentoring Program for Blacks with Trade Skills, hails its partnership with IBEW Local from Dorchester. And some of the comments made from IBEW 103's business manager, Louis Antonellis, very public on Twitter. Quote, some folks are working hard to make a difference in Boston's communities of color, exclamation point. Get it done, and we're doing it every single day, exclamation point, end quote. Working hard to make a difference in Boston's communities of color, huh? I want to be very clear here. There will always be exceptions, but the greater Boston building trades don't care about Black people. They are only doing the bare minimum now and attempting to diversify their very, very lowest tier and very lowest paying positions because they are desperately in need of workers. It's the only reason, hard stop. Moreover, let us not forget that these locals would already have Black members if it weren't for decades of open racism and hostility that Greater Boston Union Construction has shown, and in many ways continues to show, Black people. So should the Black community be pleased with these efforts? In the words of Anthony McCullough from his 1944 Christmas message to the troops when asked to surrender to the Nazis, nuts. If they were working to make a difference, their senior leadership wouldn't be all white men. They would share demographic data about their members, and their members wouldn't work almost exclusively for companies owned by white men. If they were working to make a difference, white men wouldn't still do all the decision-making, and they wouldn't still hold all the power. Not surprisingly, James Baldwin explains it best, quote, people who have opted to be white congratulate themselves on their generous ability to return to the slave that freedom which they never had any right to endanger, much less take away. For this dubious effort, they congratulate themselves and expect to be congratulated. End quote. I could go on for hours on the Greater Boston Union construction, systemic racism, but really try my best here to respect people's time. So I'll yield the remainder of my time.